to another edition of VCTV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and we have a very exciting and different type of show for you today. Different because we're going to go a little deeper on one of the more important topics we've talked about here on VCTV, and that is health tech. We are going down a level. We're going to get specific around what's happening around clinical trials, health diagnostics, therapeutics, and we might throw a few exciting curveballs in there as well, as we were just talking pre-show as to what else we're seeing within these areas as well. So stay tuned. But we've got, again, an exciting episode. We've brought some great investors from around the world, all corners of the world today, to share their thoughts and insights of what's happening as not only these industries are moving and changing here in 2020, but how technology is converging and playing a role in each of these and how that impacts us as consumers, but also how things are going to look for the year ahead. These are industries that have been changing pretty dramatically over the last decade, more so in the last 5 years, and increasingly rapid over the past 12 months. But what does that look like for the year ahead? What does that look like for this foundational year that's building for the next 10 in front of it? That's what we're going to find out, and that's what we're going to talk about here on VCTV. But before we do, audience, thank you so much for tuning in. We greatly appreciate it. If you like what you hear today, make sure you click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. And also, if you'd like to be on a show like today as an investor, do reach out to the LA Token team and or myself, and we'd love to have you and share your thoughts and insights about technologies, industries, and regions around the world with great investors who can join you as well. And entrepreneurs, guess what? We've talked about it once, talked about it twice, talked about it third time. We're going to talk about it one more. This is Q4. This is the end of the year sprint. This is the time when you're out there fundraising. This is the time you're out there pushing your product and selling your product to your consumers. We have a stage here, a virtual stage at VCTV just for you. Virtual stage for you to get up on and pitch us as investors focused on your industry. A chance to pitch us to get real-time feedback, but also to start building a foundational relationship with investors interested not only in your industry, but hopefully in your product as well, along to our entire live audience. It's a great opportunity for you and for your company, so do reach out. We'd love to find the right set of investors around the world and the industry for you to speak to. So the LA Token team and or myself are available for those discussions. And with that, a big thank you to the LA Token team and to Emmanuel for making VCTV possible every single day. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Let's go ahead and dive in to today's topic. Again, we're going down a layer. We're talking about health tech, but we're going down a layer deeper, getting specific, going micro, if you will. We're going to be talking again about those clinical trials, health diagnostic, therapeutics, where technology is integrating in these and some other areas in health tech. But before we get there, let's make sure we get all of our investors introduced and the chance to say hello to all of you as well. First and foremost, Wendy, welcome back to the show. It's a pleasure, absolute pleasure to see you. A little intro, a little background for everybody.
Okay, great. I'm Wendy Diamond. Thank you so much for having me. I'm a generalist investor in impact. So anything that's going to make this world a better place. I focus on women-led, but also just most importantly, impact in disruptive technology companies. So when we think about health, my background is I have a foundation called Women's Entrepreneurship Day Organization, which is in 144 countries where we empower, celebrate, and support women in business and work with governments, business leaders, and civil society to collaborate to find solutions to uplift women in business. I also created a media company called Animal Fair Media, which was the first media company to promote animal welfare, animal rescue, and to support adoption and rescue around the world. And I think that's pretty much it. Anyways, thank you so much for having me and excited to join this group.
Outstanding. And for those who have not checked out the Women's Entrepreneurship Day organization, definitely do. We've had Wendy on the show before here on VCTV. It's an outstanding organization. So definitely check it out. I highly recommend it from your host's perspective today. So shameless shout out for Wendy as well. Jen, welcome to the show. First time with us here on VCTV. It's an absolute pleasure. Little intro, little background.
Sure. Thanks, Kyle. So I work for Apis Partners, which is a London-based global investment manager. We manage around $1 billion under asset management, and we specialize in investments that democratize access to financial services and health and wellness services. We invest in sustainable early to growth stage companies and help them scale around the globe. And I manage the venture capital side, where we work with strategics and manage customized corporate VCs on their behalf, including some of the global insurers and banks and wellness ecosystem partners. I've been investing 20 years from venture all the way to listed. Previously, I was with T. Rowe Price at Wellington doing pre-IPOs and listed. And I recently moved from GIC, which is a Singaporean sovereign wealth fund, to manage healthcare and wellness for APIS.
Wow, wonderful. Well, welcome to the show. Excited to dive into some of that experience as well. Yeah, again, pleasure to have you. Last but not least, Grandmaster of Artificial Intelligence, join us here on a Friday, ladies and gentlemen. This is a treat. We are super excited to have you, Mr. Gary Fowler.
You know, it's made. I was thinking, I was watching this surfing show and they talked about the big kahuna. And I think that's it, Kyle. You are the big kahuna.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So my name's Gary Fowler, and I actually, on Wendy's side, I actually started one of the first accelerators in Russia, and I paid for half women, female entrepreneurs that come into the classes, and we've created some incredible companies. I'm on the impact side, Jen, so I actually have a female-led MBA Stanford graduate who has a health tech company to help aging in place. I'm a writer. I've written 81 articles in the last year on artificial intelligence in Forbes around the world. I have a show, one called Gary's Picks, where I highlight the top startups working with the top VCs in Silicon Valley, and also GSD Presents, which is last time, who did I have? I had Luca or Guy Kawasaki, I forget, but I have top leaders. I have the head of Internet of Things worldwide for Intel coming on board, talking about things like cybersecurity and smart cities. So I invest. I've done 15 companies, 2 unicorns. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which was a Haifa, Israeli company, came to Silicon Valley. I was put in place by Oak Investment Partners as one of the senior executives, renamed the company, came up with a family of products. It was sold to Salesforce 13 months ago for $1.3 billion. I also started 4 years ago, I started Eva.ai, which is now one of the top 5 AI HR tech startups. It's closing on unicorn status now. And I'm a country boy from Pennsylvania. I'm like an inquisitive child. I just love technology. As I said, I write a lot. I was an MBA professor also for a while, helped students in Russia, went to graduate school too in Russia. So I later in life, I got divorced and said, what do you want to do? I'm going back to school. And so I opened my mind up one more time. So I'm here, and a pleasure to be here, Kyle. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Wonderful. Thank you as well, Gary. And thank you, Wendy and Jen, as well, for joining us today. A lot to talk about. And let's go ahead and just jump right in as to what the current state is from each of you as you're seeing in these industries. I mean, again, a lot has changed here in 2020 around these, as we've talked about previously here on VCTV. But looking to the year ahead, what more are you guys seeing? So from each of you, would love to hear the current state of these industries, but generally, more specifically, health tech as well. So Wendy, let's start with you.
Thank you so much, Kyle. So my, big focus is, since I'm a huge animal person, I created the animal rescue movement. And when I learned 12 million animals were euthanized a year, pets are our children, right? Over 2/3 of the American families have pets. So my whole focus right now is, how do we keep pets living longer and healthier lives? And so a lot of my investments in the last about year and a half have been focused on one company is called BasePaws. It's the 23andMe for pets. It's the largest genetic DNA where we've got deals with all the companies to enable pets to live longer. That is founded by a Russian, Gary, woohoo! And she was the head of Groupon Russia, and she started this company, was spun out of Singularity University.
Is that Natalia? Natalia?
Anna. Yeah.
Okay.
And so Do you know Anna?
I do. Yeah, I was one of her COO was actually working with me on my accelerator GVA. So I met him through mutual channels. It's a small world in Russian and
I can
startups.
imagine. Yeah. Well, she's fantastic, right? And then another company that I've recently invested in is called Waggit, which is the Apple Watch for pets. I think when we're thinking about what's going on today with the pandemic, we're all like in isolation and we're all working from home and so forth. What do we want? We want to know exactly right now go on to our phone, iPhones and see exactly what are the testing, how are our pets feeling. And the future, I think, for this is everything also with health. So I'm also in a company called Safely, which is also a health company in the sexual health space. I'm also in another company called Breathometer, which is using your breath to diagnose your gut health, your heart health, as well as your bacteria in your mouth.
Wonderful. Some outstanding companies. I happen to know a few of those as well. As Gary mentioned, it's a small world. It is a very small world. Even here on VCTV, we have some overlap as well. And I know that the sexual wellness and health category has been exploding over the past few years and getting more and more integrated into our lives in a better way than we've ever expected, and it should be as well. There's some outstanding companies in the space that we'll talk about in a little bit as well. And thank you, Wendy. Jen, to you, what are you seeing as the current state of things from your standpoint, having been an investor for 20 years, but also working with about $1 billion under management and looking at these industries pretty closely? What are you seeing as everything starts to shift and change here?
Yeah, so I think I would bucket into how technology is shaping business models at this point. And if you look at the decade-defining technologies, AI, blockchain, and genomics, and a confluence of that is driving what you call hyper-personalization and convergence. And one example of an investment we made recently is we led a 15 million round in a genetics company. It's a genetics and diagnostic health company based out of Hong Kong called Prenetics. They operate across 10 countries in Asia and Europe. And think of this as, for you guys, maybe it's the next generation of 23andMe and Ancestry, because they've already are using whole exome sequencing. Whole exome sequencing is the next generation of genotyping that 23andMe uses, which generates between 50 to 100 times more data. So what that means is you can actually reduce the false positives in, for example, cancer detection, et cetera, and also customize it better for that specific person. So Prenetics also does non-invasive colon cancer testing, which is a counterpart to Cologuard in the US. And so they're basically adapting the genomics platform they have. They have a partnership with Bear Genomics in China, which is one of the lowest cost and the largest gene sequencing companies. And so they're expanding based on that cost structure into different parts of Asia and also part of Europe.
Wow, so very focused on some of the testing areas. What has kind of driven you to that area in particular? Is it the personalization aspect as an investor, or is it the convergence of those technologies and how they're being leveraged to take this kind of next step in doing some of these efforts?
So if you look at the technology stack, and the analogy is you look at your computer. You start with basically Microsoft. Basically, you need a hardware, and you need software like an operating system like a Windows, and then you have the Microsoft Office and Excel, etc. Right? So that stack is getting built in genomics right now. So the genomics equivalent of that is basically the sequencing machines that Illumina uses or develops, or more recently, companies like Oxford Nanopore that does more mobile sequencers are the hardware. And there are companies like Sophia in Europe and other companies that are running more like the operating system / some applications. And then you're going to see, what you see with the video games or Microsoft Office. That is basically you're going to some of the testing and applications at the consumer level. I think Asia, given with, in parts of Asia, they're more progressive in terms of using population level data for application. Whereas in the US, the FDA has been quite slow to standardize certain clinical level testing from a gene level applications. And so we've looked at parts of Asia. 23andMe is not very big in Asia. But you have as many people, if not more, growing population that are interested in health and wellness and personalizing to their interests. So that's how we started looking into the space.
I love it. Thank you very much for the analogy. That's pretty great. Well, to that point, Gary, to you, what are you seeing as the current state of things from these areas of industry, but then also, kind of the broader spectrum of health tech as well?
Well, so, last week I had one of the largest group of pharmaceutical companies in Europe call me up, and they were really interested in artificial intelligence and drug discovery. So if we look at it, think about it, in 2015, 2016, Google said that they have a quantum computer that's 100. I'm writing an article on quantum computing right now in AI for Forbes. So anyhow, it's 100 million times faster than a conventional computer. So think about that when tied in with artificial intelligence and complex kind of problems we're going to be able to solve. It's incredible. Our world is entirely going to change. So they were specifically asking those kind of questions. And imagine now to be able to do modeling for drug discovery and those type of interactions, things that we had to do in a lab before in a bench, and now we can do virtually. Our world is completely going to change. And in terms of what Jin said, that Stanford University and that specific study, I believe, for the dermatologist did on cancer, skin cancer, melanoma, where they said it was 23 or 24 top dermatologists, that the system was better at identifying skin cancer. And think about now with the pandemic and the issues with telemedicine, what we talked before about, Kyle, how that's entirely going to shift our lives. These things should have happened a long time ago, and they're happening to now. So diagnosis using computer vision, it's literally across the board. And now as these advanced technologies, quantum computing, unsupervised AI, prediction, it's not only about the diagnosis, but also we'll predict what's going to happen next, right? So now we're looking at genetics and being able to predict what's going to happen with that particular patient over a period of time and stop it before it becomes a problem. This is where it's really, really encouraging and exciting and interesting for me. And I think that this is a dawn of a new era, and it's a dawn where a couple of years ago, I wrote my MBA students were at Stanford University and also from Skolkovo, and we wrote a paper called Health Extensions, Living to 120. That dream is coming true. And these technologies are going to help us live longer and live better quality of lives. And it's one of my companies just won an award from AARP. It's called the Endwell Award. And that's what it's all about. How do we live longer and in the end of our lives have a better quality? And these technologies will help us do it. So AI, quantum computing, diagnostics, drug discovery, here we go.
Which is very exciting, because it almost poses a question of what's next. I mean, how does all this come together, and when does it all come together? Because we're calling it out, right? It's personalization is that next step, whether it's from us as human beings to our pets and or additional children. What does that next step look like? Are we looking 3 months out, 6 months out, 10 years out? Yeah.
Yeah. So let's think about it for a second, right? When you have, and I'm not a I'm not a doctor, an MD, but when you have cancer and you need to have that cancer removed, what's the challenge? The challenge is you're taking out so much more of that particular area where the cells are because you're not sure what is what. Now imagine having more directed therapies to be able to extract that and to make it, and then to inject those, the radiation or medicine or chemicals or whatever in a more directed fashion. How much better does that make it? Because the cancer is a very small piece, right? They take a whole lot more out because they're not unsure of where the cells have divided. So we need to go down through. These technologies are going to help us do it a lot more precise, and it's all coming in. So AI and robotics, AI and drug delivery, right? Quantum computing to be able to run these models. Look at it right now with COVID. I mean, it's the bad stuff about COVID is it's here. The good news is because there's the trillions of dollars available, right? Once somebody discovers a vaccine, if they do, it's changing everything because now they got to do super fast models. So now there's a rush around the world to develop something. And what it's done is taken everything we talk about here and it's made it faster. I mean, a year ago, I would not have had top pharmaceutical groups calling up asking about artificial intelligence, right? In a bundle, but they did.
Well, go ahead, Jen.
So if I could just add to Gary's, underpinning this AI or quantum computing, you need to have good quality data that can connect everything, basically train the models. And I'll just give you an example through how primitive, you look at the period we're talking about, how primitive we are in terms of matching with medical specialists. Currently, I'll give you another analogy. If you want to buy a computer or any widget on the internet, you can go to Amazon, check out all the specs and reviews of that, and get it instantaneously. Now, if you have a family member and she has certain type of cancer, and you have to see a specialist, you typically have to ask around who the best specialists are. You ask your doctor, your GP, or your friends or family, or you go to these websites where there are doctor reviews. The issue is there's the treatments you have to do for your relative is very customized for that person. So even for like a coronary triple bypass, depending on what equipments they use, what procedures they follow, it's going to be very different, even for the same kind of procedure, right? Combine that with your relative's condition. That person may be a senior or like a child, and they have specific conditions. So a medical specialist that's good doesn't exist because it's good for that specific person and specific procedure and that condition. Currently, there's no way for us to do that in a very effective way. We're basically throwing darts and just guessing, saying, we heard this person was good. And the future of where we're going is you can actually drill down to the procedure level and treatment level and match it against that patient's specific condition and demographics and everything to find the optimized doctor for that person. And that's what future of doctor discovery is. It's not like 5-star review based on patients, because patients don't know if their doctor's really good or not in specific areas. So one of the companies we looked at, DocDoc, is doing this build a knowledge graph mapped to certain specialists, and you can actually start running algorithms on this to do this. But this is a long haul. It's not, so short answer to your question, it's going to take a long time still.
Which is okay. I mean, this is a build, right? If normal analogy is this is a marathon, not a sprint. When it comes to personalization of certain things, as an individual, I want to make sure it's on point, not a guess. Especially if it's dealing with medicine. So I think you're spot on. I mean, it's okay that this is taking some time, but as investors, I mean, we also play bets 7 to 15 years out, playing a little bit of a spread. So that's good to know where to start placing the bets. Now, Wendy, to you, I want to come real quick on pets. So we've talked about animals pre-show, and I want to go a little bit deeper. What are you seeing, and why is this an important category around health and some of the areas that we're talking about today that people should be paying attention to for their second children, for their pets and animals as well?
Well, I mean, you think about, the world today, right? I mean, pets are giving us unconditional love, loyalty, and a bond. They are our children. So we're, people who have pets, are really, I think, more relating to what's happening right now. When you think about what, Gary was just saying about microbiomes and et cetera, I mean, this is happening right now in the pet industry. Like I mentioned earlier with, when you think about, like base paws, and what they're using is genetics and microbiome and clinical data. And their whole company is a data company, right? Enabling all these bigger companies to look at this data, because there's a lot you can learn from our pets that are going to help with humans, right? Especially also, I don't know if you knew this, but cats are getting more coronaviruses than humans. Did you know that? I mean, so when you think about all this data that we're getting and being able to use this, it's important because they're more lenient on pet health than they are human health, right? And by using a lot of this stuff, we're going to be enabling people to live healthier and longer lives. One of the things that I also want to kind of bring into this is, the data with, pets. Like, for instance, you can have, and there are a lot of companies out there, I haven't personally been invested in them, but I'm open to it, is looking at, like, how do we have that data that we can easily get from all the doctors and putting it into one system and having it on the blockchain, so it's all verified and can forever be there, and traceable, so that we understand that our pets' health for the long haul, and understanding how everything's going to work in that. And I think looking at that and looking at the food that we're giving, that's another thing, is using the data that we're getting from Waggett, getting the data from Base Paws. We're partners with Purina and et cetera, and looking at the aspects for food to create better food for our pets. So taking this to the human level, right? This is all very important, that people are more aware of the importance of what data is providing and using the genetics for this. And that's why I think, 23andMe is such a brilliant company, because when you think about all this information we're getting and being aware of what's happening within our bodies, and when we sign up for it, I think helps us make better decisions for the future.
So it brings up a good point, data. So when it comes to all of this, data is a very important role, whether that's from our pets to us as individuals. Where is the concern around, or the attention to privacy and detail, or privacy and just general data availability? I mean, is this something that's going to open up? Is this something that we're going to keep closed? Is this something we're going to anonymize? Where does data and data privacy play a role in all of these areas? And Jen, I'll come to you first, and then I'll come back around to everybody. So in terms of data and data privacy, where are you seeing the current state of this looking forward now?
I think ultimately, my view is, currently, if you look at EHR records, it's actually partly owned by the health institution, the provider, and partly owned by you as an individual. So you own the part about your health, but there are elements that's related to treatment, procedures done. That's property of the healthcare provider. So if I look at how things evolve over time, you'll see more granularity in how these data is stored. And I think it'll be as we go towards more decentralized paradigm, consumers will have power to give access to their data. And evidence, if you look at tested basic surveys, people are willing to share their data as long as they share the benefits. And it's not just clinical, it's social media, etc. As long as they share the benefits and they feel it's commensurate with what they give, they're willing to do it. but it's not being done in a way that's, the monetization is not done in a way that's conducive at this point. But the business models will adapt to that over time. And I think in terms of, yeah, I mean, I think technology is also evolving to a level, you know, we talk about blockchain, and there's elements where you can actually validate without actually disclosing the data. And it's called ZK SNARK, for example, zero knowledge proof. There are new ways of accessing data without actually disclosing the actual, you know, you just need a proxy. You don't need to, you know, if you're over 18, you don't need to, right? So this kind of proxies using technology or, you know, validators that can actually bypass. So I think it's a it's also a long-term process, but both technology and business models are adapting to this world of decentralization.
Gary, to you, same question around data privacy. What are you seeing happening or not happening in this space right now?
Yeah, so Jin's right in terms of decentralization of data, and then, you know, take it down the next level with tokens or whatever happens beyond that, because we should own our data. So I agree. But we also have a current problem. The problem we have today is we're creating so much data, right? There's enough data that we've created around the world that we could go 23 trips if we took CDs and put them end to end, or DVDs 23 times to the moon and back. Oh, look at that nice doggy. And hi. And so we've got real challenges. I mean, the situation with our data, you know, I was on a panel earlier this morning on cybersecurity, and I had a call last night with Rick Orloff, the former chief security officer at Apple and eBay. So we were talking about cybersecurity. We wrote an article together on cybersecurity, and I think we've got some real issues in it. And the other part of it is not just about our data; it's about the Internet of Things and the devices that are in these hospitals that are doing the diagnostics that can actually create some pretty severe problems for us if they get breached. So those kind of issues are concerns, and we've got to do more about it. And the types of technology with the data that are going to help are these predictive models that'll go out and forecast where the hit's going to take place, the threat's going to be, and thwart it before it becomes a problem. Because the current model that we have in these types of scenarios is that we defend, right? And we got to predict. So the model's got to move to a prediction model, which is what I'm really interested in now. In fact, my next article after quantum computing is on cybersecurity and predictive models in Forbes.
That's where things are going to get real exciting. We're going to come back to that in just a moment. But Wendy, to you, current state of data and data privacy. I mean, you're working again on both sides of this, from the consumer as an individual human to the pet side. Where are you seeing data privacy play a role? And you're on mute. Oh, hey, Wendy. There you go.
So sorry. So I've been a big fan of blockchain since 2016, Bitcoin, the whole thing. Very much someone who's in a lot of funds and believes in literally privatization and being able to have, be open. To me personally, I believe, I want people to have my data, because you know what, at the end of the day, I want to help people. And that's what I think is really important when you think about like 23andMe, or you think about base pause for your pets. It's the more that we can contribute to these research and to be able to enable people to understand what, is happening within inside our bodies, that we can enable people to live and have better lives, right? And when you think about it, if the more we're private about it, the less they're going to have all that data to be able to create better solutions to these issues. One of the things I want to go back to, Gary, I was just with the founder of a company that was so, with breast cancer, 300,000 people a year get breast cancer, right? And here they're using AI to actually go in there and see and get everything out. And this company is brilliant, right? I mean, the woman, worked at Genentech. She left it. She's now over there. And when you think about the future of what technology is doing and the data and et cetera, I mean, I see us living till like 150 years old soon. I mean, because it's really incredible that that what they have today, in the last 5 years, of what they've been able to use and see. And I work really closely with the innovation teams over at Mayo Clinic and the Cleveland Clinic. So I'm very aware of a lot of the stuff that's happening, that's coming out of there, and being able to take some of these young entrepreneurs that I invest in and be able to really accelerate their growth in these issues is kind of, is you're seeing all this amazing stuff that's coming out, and especially with the genetics and microbiome.
So with that being said, let's get into diligence, because this is all great, but from an investor standpoint, unless you're in it, there's probably some difficulty around diligence of companies in this nature, because there is so much science behind it. It's a different angle than what we're used to seeing, maybe just from a traditional tech company. So would love to hear from each of you any advice or thoughts you have around diligence of these companies. So as investors, what should we be looking for from a diligence? And not just the team. We know it's all about the team. We know that. But what else should we be looking for when we're looking at a company in these spaces, from clinical trials to therapeutics to genomics as well? What are some of those things to stay conscious of and really dive deeper or push on as we're doing diligence as well? Jen, I saw you unmute, so I'm gonna throw it to you first.
Yeah, I think one of the things that, it may work at, the technology may work and be validated at a small scale, at a lab stage. But we've seen issues with scaling that technology cost efficiently to the market that is commercially fit for, and that's because it's not only, you're basically dealing with a technology curve and basically a commercial curve, and you have to get both right at this point. So it's not even double harder, it's multiple harder. So I think what people underestimate is actually, when you do due diligence, it's actually not just looking at it working in small scale, but you have to simulate this at a production level and a commercial level.
Gary, to you. Thank you, Jen.
Yeah, sorry about that. What was the question again, Kyle? Sorry about that. I'm lost in thought.
No worries. I mean, it's a wild day, so I know we're all in the same spot, so no stress. It's all around diligence, and I know you're reading some diligence just now.
Absolutely. So the situation in terms of the AI models, I mean, one is look at the results of what they have. I would compare them with in the breast cancer scenario. How do the diagnostic experts say it compares with their results, and benchmark it against them? But the other thing is, I would look at the AI models, because there's a lot of BS out there about artificial intelligence, and people don't understand it. I mean, I wrote that article on deep learning versus machine learning, and I just thought everybody understands it. It was the highest article I've ever written in Forbes magazine in terms of views. Seriously, it was crazy. It's like 10x any other article. And it's just, we don't understand. And when I talked to those pharmaceutical companies last week, even the top pharmaceutical companies don't get it. So you need to make sure that you've got the right kind of resources in there to validate what they're saying about the AI and the variational autoencoders and ladder networks and knowledge graph, et cetera, that it's real. And the other thing is, and a lot of it can be done by the results, right? So I would look at what kind of results they've achieved, and you don't want to take a crapshoot approach. And sometimes I've heard recently that companies are being pushed by their CEOs, their chief innovation officers or chief AI officers, to bring in artificial intelligence at literally all costs, because their board's forcing them. Make sure it's not a bunch of BS coming in, because nothing good's going to happen. So in terms of validating the companies, you're right in terms of the team, but I would also look at what kind of traction they have. Are people willing to pay money for whatever product or service they have? And to make sure there's validation.
Absolutely. It's a great point. Wendy, to you, diligence. What should people be looking for or diving deeper into?
When it comes to me, it's what impact this is going to have on the world, right? Is the team capable of doing it? What is the technology? What are they using? I'm also a big, I have advisors, and I have a lot of advisors in every sector, and I go to those people because I really don't know myself, right? So I need to go to them to say, hey, do you think this is right? What do you think? And then I also go into some of our partners, and I go to a lot of the big health companies and ask them, what do you think of this, and et cetera? Because I think right now, like when you think about it, everybody in the world right now is like, how do we, how can we make this world a better place, right? We have a lot more time. We're at home. People are more interested right now more than ever of how can we be healthier? How can we be happier? Because mental health is another big topic here that we haven't even spoken about. And I think that's a really important thing to look at, because that's another thing to go into privacy, right? Like, do people want to put that up? And so, when I look at it, my whole thing, when I'm looking at diligence, it's about the team. It's about who, getting the validation from my advisors, because I think that's really important to have people and have their insight on it more so than, my personal. And that would be my, I think pretty much, and what impact this is going to have in the world. And I'm more of a simple person, so I need to understand it myself. And if I can understand it and I see the impact this is going to have in the world, and that we can verify everything, then I will be more likely to invest in that company.
So with that being said, as we're coming to close to the top of the hour here for the lightning round, let's dive into mental health as an area of opportunity. And I'll come to everybody around other opportunities that you're seeing. But Wendy, since you called it out, what are you seeing in the mental health space? Why is this an area of opportunity that people should be paying attention to now?
Well, I mean, who doesn't have mental health issues, right? Right now, I think that we could say everybody in the world. There's a difference between mental health and mental illness, right? There's a difference, right? And I think right now what I've been seeing a lot is I'm probably looking at myself about a half dozen companies right now that are in the space offering, everything. Again, it's about having that right on your phone and being able to access that. So a bunch of apps right now that are really impressive, that are looking at how do we connect people with AI and to the right person to help, et cetera. And I think that's going to be the main thing right now, because it's going to be one-on-one relationships. Right? How do we engage those type of relationships to support people? Because at the end of the day, I think, it's really about bringing emotional resilience back to people, right? And bringing hope and purpose. And I think when I think about, what people should be investing in, I think this is a very big category that we should all be paying really close attention to.
Absolutely. And that's why I asked why now. And it's interesting, because this is a category that, we have talked about in very shy ways for many years, and for the past 2 to 3 years has started to kind of come back up on surface. And over the past, I would say 24 months, we've actually seen more funds be created to focus solely on this vertical. And to your point, I agree. It's something actually we're going to see more investment in around all sides, as individuals to the enterprise, even to our second children and pets. This is just going to be a part of our lives, when traditionally it's been very taboo. So going back to like sexual wellness and health, as we talked about earlier in the show, these are things that have been very taboo and very standoffish for many of us. And now it's becoming something of, we have to have this. Back to Jen's point, this is a part of our tech stack, right? As humans, this is our operating, or part of our operating system. This is our Microsoft Office that we have to have there. Jen, I'm loving how you brought that up. I don't know if it's tying in correctly, but.
Wait, can I throw in one more thing? One of the companies, I have a small investment in this one, is called Trust Circle. And it's an anonymous community where we've signed on a bunch of different community colleges, as well as, a police department and et cetera. They're now talking to the NYPD. And it's because of this, they want an anonymous platform, right? And so this is another one using AI to enable people to have emotional resilience and be connected to people. So I think when you think about it, there's a lot out there, and I think a lot of us should look at how can we support this issue.
Well, it's even more important today than ever. And I'll just add on my points of that before I come to Jen and Gary is that, right now we're living our lives more digitally than ever. And it's not just because of 2020, but looking forward, that's probably going to be a continuing trend as we're getting more integrated into our digital lives, and those are becoming synonymous with our physical lives. And having that core component of an additional community and additional outlet, additional care is going to be more important than ever. So absolutely great point. Jen, to you, areas of opportunity, what are you seeing that people should be paying attention to that they may not be already?
So I'll just add to what you just said, Kyle, and just extend it a little further. From a healthcare provider perspective, I think you're seeing the unbundling of primary care, and it's coming to basically being consumed at home and virtually, right? And from a consumer perspective, you're also consuming it more bite-sized and usage-based rather than the whole rack rate. And so there are business models that are coming out that play to this unbundling of the primary care or consumption of healthcare services on a usage-based model. Now, having said that, I'm a bit more skeptical of the telemedicine model as a standalone, because it's kind of like the airline industry where it's very commoditized, and it's basically you have to compete with a differentiated wedge. And the way it's being consumed right now is you can't justify the acquisition cost to deliver good service just as a standalone. And that's why you've seen consolidations with Teladoc buying Livongo. You're going to see more consolidation. So, but there are going to be new business models that have come out in how you service this unbundled primary care.
And Gary, to you, what areas of opportunity are you seeing as well?
So, I mean, it's like we've said this, because there's so much data around all of us, the artificial intelligence to be able to make sense of that data, doesn't matter what, literally across all vertical markets. So obviously with health tech, drug discovery, as I said, with the pharmaceutical companies just recently calling me up, I think it's an untapped opportunity. So Kyle, we've said many times, AI is the new electricity. This is the dawn of the 20th century. Nikola Tesla's just put out alternating current. The next 20, 30 years are going to truly change our lives. So literally it's a greenfield opportunity for everything. But of course we want to live longer. We want to, as Wendy says, to 150. I personally was involved in the project to 120. So, it's a dawn of a new opportunity for all of us.
Absolutely. And it is just a sprint to the end of it as well. There's so much opportunity of this convergence that we're starting to see right now. And thank you all for all the thoughts and insights that you shared today. I want to come to each of you for one second, Wendy, 1 second. Hold on. I got you. Oh, one second. Yeah. So I want to come to each of you for your closing thoughts. So Wendy, I'm coming to you for that in just a second. And where can everyone find you online as well, as we've hit the lightning round? So Wendy, I want to come to you. Comment and then closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you?
Yeah, going back to health, it's about our food also, right? It's what are we putting into our bodies? And when you think about it, our bodies are not meant to digest processed foods, right? So that's why we really start to have to think about this. One of the things I want to, point out about mental health is I'm involved in, I've invested heavily into a food company, what's called Producers Market. And we are partners with the government of India and the United Nations Environmental Program. And in this program, they were taking away all the fertilizers and the pesticides, right? Because they had a huge suicide problem with the farmers because they were unhealthy, that their crops were going, the fertilizer, everything was screwing up the land, et cetera. So where I'm bringing this out is they now go back to the old ancient Indian practices of manure, sugarcane, and urine to fertilize the land. This whole community, the suicide rate is way down, way down. The people are healthy and happy. And when it comes down to our health, it's about the food we eat. It's about our mind, the way we are, and it's really important to be positive, right? And that what they found in all that, and I know it's kind of like, you know, when we're talking about data on the whole thing, but it's as simple as that when you think about it. So anyways, you can catch me, you can check out what I do, wendydiamond.com. You'll see all my investments. I'm in about 20 different investments, and I'm in a bunch of funds, and I'll do anything to help make this world a better place. Thank you.
Rockstar. Thank you so much, Wendy. I appreciate it. I didn't mean to cut you off, but thank you. I'm glad you got that in there as we come to the lightning round here. And Jen, to you, closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you?
Yeah, so I think we're in a very exciting point where, you know, what AI is actually reduces information asymmetry, and blockchain improves coordination costs. Yeah, so the combination of these two continuously structurally reduce unit cost to delivery for healthcare, not just healthcare, everything, which opens up the market, the lower end of the long tail of consumers, not just in the US, but across the world in emerging markets. And that's very powerful. And
Kyle?
Jim, we may have lost you there. So we're going to come right back to you. Gary, closing thoughts. And of course, where can everyone find you online?
Yeah, so you can get me on LinkedIn, Gary Fowler. Google my name, Gary Fowler. I'm all around. And closing thoughts. I mean, so this is a great time for startups to be successful if you're smart. You know, the digital transformation's here. You know, Zoom 8 months ago was people weren't really talking about like today. I remember 5 years ago when I was one of the first customers on Zoom. And here we are today. It's 400 plus million active users every day. So use the technology to get out there, be persistent. You can raise money. Online is cool. People have to trust you. Use your trusted network to be able to get to the right types of investors. And GSD Venture Studios is my company. We curate AI companies that want to go global. And we've built 2 unicorns, and we're looking to build more.
Wonderful. Absolutely. Jen, back to you. Thank you, Gary. Where can everyone find you online?
I have my Twitter account.
We may have lost Jen, so no stress. So everyone can check Jen out on Twitter. His Twitter handle is here on the screen. It may be frozen at the moment, so you got plenty of time to capture it. If you didn't capture it, well, we'll be happy to share it with you as well. All, thank you again so much for sharing your thoughts and insights today around all of these industries and how technology is playing an impactful role around the world in each of these. To your audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Do reach out if you'd like to be on a show like today, as we would love to have you join us as investors talking about today's topics, but also others as well. And as entrepreneurs, do reach out and join us on the virtual stage to pitch us as investors and our live audience to get real-time feedback on your company, product, and service, along with getting exposure to the live virtual audience that we have as well. And for those who, again, have not checked out, definitely check out Wendy's organization, the Women's Entrepreneurship Day Organization, WEDO. Definitely highly recommended. Check out Jen and Gary along with Wendy online 24/7, 365. We all live it. We're all there. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find me everywhere there. Thank you, Gary. A big shout out to the LA Token team and to Emmanuel for making VCTV possible every single day. With that, everyone have a great week, a great weekend. We'll see you back here.